When you partner with Axon, you immediately gain access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. We carry all major brands and sizes of tires and wheels. We specialize in large diameter wheels for large equipment. We have one of the largest OEM replacement wheel inventories in North America. Known for extreme flotation setups, duals, and triples, we have wheels for all makes and models of tractors, sprayers, combines, and grain carts. If we don't have the wheel in stock, we'll custom build, sandblast, and paint in-house. There isn't a more vast inventory in North America dedicated to helping dealers move more iron. With facilities on the West Coast and in the heart of the Midwest, leverage our 230,000 square feet of indoor inventory to solve any problem a grower may have. Move more iron with Axon.
Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast Markets with Chip Nellinger. Chip is with Blue Reef Agri Marketing out of Morton, Illinois. He's nice enough to come on and talk about what's happening in the marketplace. So Chip, how you doing this morning, man?
Doing well. How you doing, Casey?
I'm doing good, man. We got Memorial Day weekend coming up, and it's one of those. It's a kickoff to the summer, but it's also one of those somber holidays that mean a lot more than just barbecuing. So, God bless all the fallen troops out there and their families that have given the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom here in the United States. So I appreciate that, and I'll make sure that one of those things I want to make sure I throw out there when this time of year comes around.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Memorial Day to everyone.
Right on. All right, Chip, let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the market. So weather is starting to creep in to the conversation, good, bad, and otherwise. I mean, I've heard, it's going to be the best crop ever because look at all the rain we're getting. But then I talked to guys out in your neck of the woods, and sounds like it's a little bit drier than they would expect it to be right now. You look at some drought map situations, and it's reflecting that a little bit. My neck of the woods out here in the extreme western Corn Belt area is we've got plenty of water. I would say we've probably gotten somewhere between 6 and 10 inches of rain, depending on where you're at over the last 3 weeks. So we've got plenty of water out this way. You start taking a look at the other parts of the country in the eastern side, and it's getting to be a bigger and bigger circle of dryness out there, Chip. So I guess as you're looking at this kind of stuff and looking at drought maps and people we're talking with, what are you hearing and kind of what's your response to some of the stuff you're seeing?
Yeah, between where you're at, Casey, in western Nebraska, and where I'm at in central Illinois seems to be the trouble spot right now. It's dry, and it's hard to talk up, yield losses at the end of May here. We're about to turn the calendar to June here next week. But it is a little bit concerning, and we need some rain. Right. And it has stopped the market from going lower and put a little bit of a bounce in these markets. We'll see if it holds going into the close here ahead of a long weekend. Usually it's the July 4th holiday that, kind of turns the market one way or the other as far as, the big weekend and uncertainty about, is it going to rain? Is it not going to rain? But it's a little bit early this year. I'm not saying we won't have that for July 4th, but we certainly have that over this long Memorial Day weekend. Not much rain in the forecast right now. We're going to need some better rainfall in June. And so once you come back in here Monday night and Tuesday morning after the long holiday, the market's going to be really highly sensitive to any changes in those extended weather models. We need to get some rain out there. It's probably not hurting yield yet, but in 2 to 3 weeks, if we don't get some better rainfall, it might start taking the top end off of yield. So, we talked a little bit on previous podcasts here that, that May crop report really set the bar pretty high at 181.5 bushel national average corn yield and 52 on beans. And the market responded to that like it was almost a certainty or already, realized.
Right.
And the funds got short. You had a massive amount of selling. And I don't think these debt talks have helped out the commodity markets either. Some selling because of that and the uncertainty around whether we're going to get a debt deal or not. And the markets kind of forgot, like, hey, it's only May. We just planted this crop. In fact, up in North Dakota, we're not even sure if they're going to get all the acres planted. We're past their first or their last planting date now. And we might have gone a little too fast to the downside. And so point being with this all, as you come out of Memorial Day weekend here next week, the weather forecast is going to drive a tremendous amount of volatility. If there's no rain in the 2-week forecast, that takes you out to about mid-June at that point, you're going to start seeing the market come out of some shorts, put a little bit of risk premium back in the market, and, rally up into some higher resistance levels. If you come back in, it's a 180-degree turn, and, we were wrong, it's going to rain everywhere, then we've got, some downside to come. So there's going to be a lot of volatility potentially setting up for next week. It's all about rainfall. Temperatures have been fairly cool. They are going to warm up a little bit next week, but we've been pretty benign on temperatures, actually pretty cool in some areas. In parts of northern Wisconsin and Michigan, there was a frost overnight, like a hard frost. So that might have actually nipped a few acres of newly planted corn and beans up there. So it's not so much temperature at this point. It's more about we are pretty dry. And you get parts of eastern Nebraska, western Iowa, central Iowa, parts of Illinois here, Missouri included. They just didn't come into spring with a lot of subsoil moisture. They've had a couple rains here and there ahead of planting, but we're way below average as far as rainfall goes. So it's going to start being critical. It's going to start driving a lot of volatility in our grain, our corn and bean markets. Corn specifically, you throw in there again, you might be going to this as your next question. Now there's some talk. I'm just glancing at the markets here. There's some talk overnight that Russia's back, playing hardball in the Black Sea Agreement, and they're not letting ships pass. And so that's thrown in ahead of this long weekend as well. And that's always, it seems like it changes every 12 hours on the Black Sea Agreement. But there's a lot of questions out there that could drive a lot of volatility in the next few weeks as we get ready to turn the calendar to June here.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts out there, and there's something new that gets thrown into the old soup bowl there about every 12 hours, like you talked about. It's something brand new. Let's jump over and spend a little time over here on the protein side of the market. So you got two dynamics working here. You've got the pork cutout side that is just deteriorating really fast. You start looking at what the prices of pork cutout look like, but then you flip over onto the cattle side, and if the price of beef wasn't expensive enough when you go to the store, it must not be, because packers can't seem to buy enough stuff out there. So I guess looking at those two dynamics, Chip, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's really crazy. It really is. It's just mind-boggling at times. The fear for 6 to 9 months has been, can the consumer hold up and these high beef prices? Can the consumer stay in there and see the demand that we've seen? So far, it looks like they are. Now, the argument, I'm just reading the argument on the other side of this, beef or pork and the pork cutout just imploding. Casey, a lot of this weakness in the pork market and the hog market, I think, relates to a couple things. We had a cold storage report a couple days ago. It showed a massive amount of certain different cuts of pork, and it kind of got the market thinking, oh my God, there's not enough consumer demand out there on the pork side. Well, that doesn't jibe to me, right? If consumers are out here and they're still buying high priced beef, you can't have an argument that pork, which is historically underpriced relative to beef, I mean, it's never been this cheap relative to beef, that there's not enough demand there. So I think at the heart of it, what it comes from is fears around this Proposition 12 ruling that's going to go into effect, I believe, July 2nd. You and I have talked about this before, that some of these progressive left-wing proposals that you think, there's no way that's going to pass. There's no way they're going to implement that. It's beyond the scope of rationality. And yet it does. And I think it took the industry by surprise. It took me by surprise. I don't know why it continues to surprise me, right? I think when they start throwing these proposals up, we ought to get real serious about adjusting to the fact that we've got some really stupid stuff coming down the pipe here.
Yeah.
Soapbox aside, I think the hog market really has some problems here, because you've got a massive demand base out of California, the massive amount of hogs from outside of California that get shipped in there, and it's not compliant to this Proposition 12. So the market says, well, what's going to happen? They seem serious. They're not going to take the pork. What are we going to do with all the pork that California isn't going to eat because it's not compliant with Proposition 12. And the market has taken a shoot first and ask questions later attitude. And unfortunately, it's just been absolutely brutal on the cutout, on cash values. We're seeing liquidation. We're seeing massive losses. One producer told me it's losses akin to what was it, 2008, when we had single-digit hogs and literally no market for them. Now, it's a different price level, but due to inflation and where we're at, high cost of meal, high cost of corn, higher price of pork than when we saw that debacle. But producers are losing a ton of money right now, and it's very unfortunate. It's kind of disheartening. I do think technically you've stretched this market so far to the downside, could rally $6 or $8 at the drop of a hat and still just kind of be in a normal correction in a big downtrend. But it is really a head scratcher. I think it's something that the beef market needs to watch pretty closely, right? Because it is a competitive protein and it's getting cheaper by the day. And so eventually beef prices will find themselves at a high enough level that it will start rationing demand. And we really have to watch for that. But right now, beef and the cattle market, just really a strong position right now. And they're up, so far again today. Feeders are down just a little bit. They need to correct relative to fats. Corn's up here with the uncertainty of the dry weather forecast ahead of the weekend. That's causing some corrections in the feeder market. But it just seems like cash cattle continue to go higher, and the numbers aren't out there. And they're probably going to shrink as we get into June, July, and August. So this thing is a crazy dynamic between pork and beef right now. Something will give along the way. But right now, as many problems as you have on the pork side and an abundance of supply out there, it's the exact opposite on the beef side.
Yep. And the thing about the Prop 12 deal, I'm just kind of pulled up, kind of ran through it real quick. It's chickens and hogs, confinement-based stuff, veal for calves, for veal, and those kind of things. It could very easily be one of those things on the beef side too, where all of a sudden, you can't have stuff that was not grass fed, and it has been in a feedlot or something like that. Some kind of language that comes into that. It's going into California again. That opens up a whole string of things there too. So you're right. These kind of things, when they pop up, they need to be paid really close attention to, and people really need to educate themselves on what this is, because this is a big deal that changes. Because if it happens there, it'll start happening in other places, and slowly but surely, you start really changing the dynamics of the way these markets operate and work in the long term, and in a very short term thing, make a very long term lasting impact on what we see happen in these markets.
For sure. And what you're going to do is you're going to drive. I mean, it sends the wrong signal, right? It's the opposite of free market. Take a step backwards from that. These policies, if you just slow down and take a look at what's going on in lots of different sectors of the world right now, and just general culture, this is a 50, 60-year general plan of attack that they've now, it seems like they're force feeding it to the world out of a fire hose. And I think COVID kind of threw some diesel on the fire already. And people, I think, are slowly waking up to the fact that some of these things are bad, and you could argue borderline downright evil. And I don't want to be too extreme on this thing, but it's anti-free market. You have to have a market that works freely. So now what you're going to do is you're going to force a bunch of hog producers out of the market because they're going to go broke because of this rule. And then when people want all this pork, even in normal places that are somewhat still rational, pork's going to be a higher price because you're going to reduce the supply of it, because you're going to throw all these people into liquidation and out of the market, out of the industry. They're going to go bankrupt. They're going to retire. They're going to be done with it. And in result, long term, is going to be much higher pork prices. And it, like you said, it could happen across the board in ag, and I'd be surprised if it doesn't. Just look what happened. Where was it, in Belgium recently? You know, you just get some a crazy enough majority to say, well, we're just going to cut, we're going to ban fertilizer and nitrogen usage, or cut it by 2/3. Well, what happens then? What do you think will happen to corn prices and wheat prices when they start doing that in the United States?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Casey. I'm ahead of Memorial Day. I got a lot of caffeine in me. Getting ready for a relaxing weekend, and I'm on my soapbox here. So hopefully we don't get shadow banned on Twitter or something.
Oh, if I get shadow banned, man, that means I made it. So I'm looking forward to it. But they have, I'm right there with you. I mean, these as these things come down the pike, they're well intentioned, but at the end of the day, the backlash that comes, the old adage is, what's that thing? The most scary word someone can say to you is, I'm from the government. I'm here to help. It's not. There's not a government program out there that's worked the way it's supposed to have worked ever.
I don't even know if I agree with you that it's well intentioned. I go back to I watched this train wreck in slow motion. So I think it was France had this plan. They're gonna, which I don't understand the thing against nuclear. It's the cleanest, safest form of energy, right?
Right.
But suddenly it's gotten a bad name. So you've got this plan out of France. We're going to do away with all our, nuclear plants. We're going to phase them out. We're doing away with coal. We got all this, supply coming from Russia and Ukraine, and then Russia invades Ukraine, and France follows through with deactivating their last 2 nuclear power plants, and then scratch their head when they can't afford energy and to heat their homes. And they had a mild winter. If they would have had a bad winter, people would have froze to death. And it's just beyond rational. Yet it happens again and again and again and again. And people aren't, pardon my French, pissed off enough yet to vote that crap out. And hopefully that will come sooner rather than later. And our kids and grandkids can.
What comes from that? Then you had the same thing, like California did the same thing. Oh well, we're going to give everybody, because prices are so high right now, and for various reasons, various market-driven reasons, and all kinds of regulations and everything else on top of that. Now we're going to give you an extra amount of money on top of that to offset the cost that you have, which just drives the cost up even higher, because now there's more money out there, so people are going to go spend it. So there's more supply and demand, and more demand for the supply that's out there. And it's like 101 shit. You know what I mean? Over and over.
Yeah, it's anti-free market. It's socialist, communist thought. It doesn't work. We've got 100+ years of lots of examples as to why it doesn't work. It doesn't work because it sends the wrong message to the market. For a market to work, it has to be free. It has to react to supply and demand. And when the government steps in and starts limiting the supply or regulating demand or lack thereof, then markets get out of whack and only problems happen as a result. So I guess if there's one thing I learned from very early on, probably because my first job was working at the border trade on the floor for a member, I saw it every day. The market it will be ugly, right? If you have a natural oversupply, the market will get cheap enough to slow production and increase demand, and vice versa. If you have a shortage, as in beef, eventually we're going to get high enough, it will slow demand down. The market works if you let it. But if you start messing with it, mostly through government intervention and stupid policies, then just untold bad problems happen. And eventually it'll result in people going hungry and freezing to death. But unfortunately, that might be what it takes to get people's brain in a position to vote this crap out.
Yep, I agree with you, Chip. All right, probably a good place to stop right there. Let's
I might have just got banned for Memorial Day, Casey. You might need to get on the horn and find some more potential guests, because
I think
they might not let me on anymore.
I think we did a good one there. So, all right, man. If folks want to reach out to you and get more information about what you're doing over at Blue Reef, what's the best way to do that?
Oh man, do I really want to give my contact information after that? No, you can go ahead and reach us. Love to talk to producers about their risk management plan and how to execute that better and how to develop those plans. Our number at our main office is 309-550-7213. Don't hesitate to call me. Love to chat with you.
Right on, man. Chip, appreciate you being on. Have a good weekend.
Hey, thanks a lot. Happy Memorial Day to everyone.
Right on. I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC, LinkedIn at Moving Iron Podcast, and check out the video version of this over on the YouTube channel, which is the Moving Iron Podcast YouTube channel. Check it out there. Go to Moving Iron LLC for everything Moving Iron related, and check out the information for the Moving Iron Summit coming up here in Nashville, Tennessee, September 11th through the 13th. For more information about that and what's out there, send me an email at movingironpodcast@movingironpodcast.com, and I'll make sure to get back to you ASAP. So with that, remember what this weekend's about, folks. It's more than just barbecues. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Chip Nellinger. Smooth Smile, folks. Out.
Moving iron in the 21st century.